Great.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Administrator, for being in front of us today. I appreciate it. And as an Iowan who strongly believes in our renewable fuel standard, we will start in that area. So, Administrator, recent studies indicate that the greenhouse gas reductions from the first generation conventional corn ethanol are almost 50% relative to gasoline. When properly administered, the RFS has the ability to dramatically reduce emissions from our transportation sector. But I am growing increasingly concerned that every time an administration official talks about biofuels, they only do it in the context of the new fuels and the new markets, such as aviation and marine fuels. So can you please set the record straight on where the administration is with their commitment to ethanol and biodiesel usage in the transportation fleet of today and of the future?
I think that's an excellent question, and I'll say that the President has indicated from day one that agriculture is at the table. Secretary Vilsack and I are having these conversations, and there is no intent in terms of exclusion when we talk about the promising future of electric vehicles or when we talk about the promising future of advanced biofuels. The reality is that as we talk about these promising futures, we have to deal with here and now and a glide path to get to these promising futures. And what we know is that ethanol plays a significant role in providing those resources here and now today and will evolve as we start to look at the new futures for advanced biofuels and electric vehicles.
So do you think that corn ethanol will still continue to have a place, and do you see it having a larger role in the future, a smaller role? What do you anticipate?
I think that's where I'm engaging with the ag community, with Farm Bureau, with ag CEOs, to best determine where they believe the markets will go, to best understand where they believe the evolution of ethanol will be. And it's our jobs to ensure that that vision coincides with the vision that we see for the lowest carbon economy in the future.
No, I appreciate that, and I hope you continue to work with those stakeholders. They will be very valuable in providing input, but again, strong advocate for the RFS, and I think it has a significant role to play in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And Administrator, in a recent House hearing, you said, in regards to WOTUS, we don't have any intention of going back to the original Obama waters of the U.S. verbatim. And that was welcome news to me and to many of Iowa's farmers and ranchers. And now that you've committed to not reinstating the exact Obama rule, what should we expect to see if you decide to make changes? Will it be something that goes even further than the Obama waters of the U.S. rule, or will it be something closer to the President Trump administration's rule?
I think that that statement was to indicate that we're just not going to pull a rule off the shelf, especially after we've learned so much over the years. So that's not to be dismissive of what was done in the past, but I think there are some lessons learned. We're also not quite satisfied that the waters of the U.S. developed under the Trump administration is as protective of water quality as it could be while not placing administrative burdens on our small farmers. So what I'm not willing to do is sort of prejudge the outcome without an earnest engagement with our ag community. I've pledged to engage with our agriculture community. I've pledged to work with USDA and Secretary Vilsack. We are going to set up a structured stakeholder engagement where we actually sit and listen to those who are impacted by our regulations and come to some conclusions on what's the best way to move forward without ping-ponging back and forth, protecting our water quality and not overburdening our farmers.
Good. Stakeholders, again, very, very key here. The Biden administration has had two recent opportunities to demonstrate that low-carbon biofuels have a place in their greenhouse gas reduction efforts. A $2.3 trillion infrastructure bill, and most recently in the new 2030 emission target released last week. but neither of these contained much mention of or support for biofuels. So I am growing, again, increasingly concerned that every time the administration talks about biofuels, that they continue to do it in the same manner. So as we're looking at that, can you agree that advanced biofuels should be part of the nation's strategy to address carbon emissions?
I think the president's very clear on this, that agriculture is at the table and that biofuels plays a role in reducing our carbon footprint, and so do many of the voluntary practices of our ag community to capture carbon and to operate in a sustainable manner. So again, I think the president's been very clear that agriculture is at the table and plays a significant role.
Good. And we would love to hear our administration officials really talking about the place that ethanol and biodiesel play, whether it's reducing greenhouse gas emissions or otherwise providing affordable fuels to our American citizens. So, we really want to hear more about that to understand the commitment behind the RFS from this current administration. Thank you, Administrator. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.